Hello and welcome to A Woman's Heart. Today we are blessed to have with us Mischelle Saunders-Gottsch. I said that correctly, didn't I?
You did.
Yes.
Great job.
Thank you. Well, welcome to the show, Mischelle. It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Lisa. I am so excited to be here, and I love the name of your podcast and
Well,
what you're doing in
thank
touching
you.
women's hearts.
Yeah, so that is the goal. And as I mentioned, I always like to get to know my guests. And I know we've had a wonderful conversation before we really started that recording, but I would love for my audience to get to know you just a little bit and for you to share something fun that isn't normally in your bio.
Okay, well, thank you again for giving me this opportunity. For those that don't know me, I am a redeemed woman of God, and I have been through the power of my story and the healing that God brought into my life, leading a faith-based evangelistic storytelling Christian women's um, ministry called Altered Stories Ministry. So I'm the founder and the CEO, and I've been doing that for about 7 years. In
Wow.
addition, I have also, as part of our brand, I'm the host of the Altered Stories show. And then I've been sharing women's God stories, about 180 of them, all across the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have written a book to validate and bring credibility to my story and to help those who pick up the book and read it. It's a 30-day healing memoir devotional called
Mm-hmm.
The Story Within You, The Healing Power of Your Story. So I'm an author now and always have written. I started out as a journalism major and then deviated into business,
Okay.
changed, and then even went into the IT world and then moved into faith-based um, organizations, helping them with all of their program, project management, governance, all those pieces in software development. And God called me out of that and said, "Hey, I want you to start this Christian women's evangelistic storytelling ministry." So in a way, I see myself as a God storytelling blazer, a trailblazer. So
Yeah.
anyway, I'm a wife and a mom and a Gigi, and I'm an animal lover, love dogs, and I just love talking. I love relationships. Um, I love traveling, all those things. And what you don't probably know about me that you might be interested
Okay.
is I co-host another podcast. It's called Blaze and Gutch, and we share faith-based stories around football.
Oh,
Yeah, I'm
okay.
actually a football lover, and my host, the other co-host of the actual podcast, Blaze and Gutch, she is a diehard football fan.
Oh
So we
my
kind of
goodness.
complement each other. So I do that, and we've been doing that. We're trying to build that just because we both love football and we're two crazy women talking about it.
There you
So
go.
hopefully that's enough, Lisa.
Yes, that is enough. And yeah, what a lucky man that he has a wife that loves football. Unless you tell me that your husband doesn't care about football, because in my case, I actually do enjoy watching sports, and my husband, for the most part, unless it's our kids on the field, he could care less. And I'm like, you know what? It's that you just don't realize how lucky you have it with a wife that enjoys sports.
Well, mine won't watch the games.
Oh, he won't.
He
Okay.
played football. He was an all-state defensive tackle, and he also walked on at the University of Wyoming and played there for a while. And
Oh,
then
wow.
he does not like to sit and watch it. It makes him nervous because he's played, and
Mm.
he'd rather play.
Oh,
But so
okay.
hey, what can I say? I'm sitting
Well, then,
in
then
watching the
you can watch
game.
it. You can watch
And
it, and
for
then you can go talk
everybody
about it on your
else, and he's,
podcast.
yeah. So, hey, what can I say?
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And we're going to get into a little bit more about your book. Real quick though, if someone listens to our whole conversation, what are you hoping that they are going to get out of our conversation today?
Oh, I'm just hoping what they'll get out of the conversation is just encouragement. And if they have a God story, or there's a pull, or they believe that God is prompting them to share their story, to understand it is a powerful, authentic tool to communicate the gospel, and it demonstrates God's grace and transforming power. And so do think about that, um, instead of being kind of concerned about, you
Yeah.
think about the bigger picture. And that's, be obedient to that tug, because
Yes.
God's got a plan for your story.
Well, and that was one of the first things that I wanted to kind of dive into a little bit more. You wrote the book, The Story Within You, which when I read the description, I was like, oh, wow, that's like right up the alley for the podcast and really encouraging women to use their voice and to use their story, that it's
Yeah.
unique for a reason. That it may have some similar themes to somebody else's. Yours has some themes of church hurt and abuse, which other people, but then again, yours is unique to you and the other pieces about it. And one of the things that you had to struggle through is that, oh, well, is anybody going to really want to read my story? And as you mentioned, it's like a memoir and a devotional all in one with bits and pieces of your story throughout with the lessons
Hmm.
learned. But I would love for you to talk a little bit more. Why is that? That we so often, I think, especially as women, men have it too, but I think especially as women, we feel so easily dismissed or minimized in sharing our stories, and yet it's so important to get over that. So what was that,
Hmm.
the obstacles that you overcame, that some of those thoughts that you were having when you were like, oh, is going to want to read, and how did you overcome those?
Yeah, these are all really great questions, and I'm so thankful you're asking them. For me, it was a scary, big, scary thing for me
Yeah.
because I didn't know how it would affect my career. I didn't
Yeah.
know how people would view me, how they would view my family.
Mm,
And, having come out of that kind of chaotic and abusive younger me, I always felt less, you know.
yeah.
And so I think for that, moving ahead, I was not sure I could trust the people that would hear my story.
Mm,
And it
yeah.
was, God made it very evident that it was what I was supposed to do. I mean, he really forced my hand in it. Um,
He has a
and
way of doing that sometimes.
there was too many coincidental things that happened that made it very apparent that God was saying, you got to do this because I'm asking you and I'm raising you up to
Hmm.
facilitate and help these other women share their stories. So he put me in all types of situations and circumstances, to, I guess, show me, because I can be hard-headed, really hard-headed, strong-willed.
Persistent, stubborn, those are much nicer words. Uh,
Yes, yes, persistent, stubborn, all that. Um, but he also started as a gentleman, as God can be.
yeah.
He gave me these little opportunities to start to share bits and pieces of what I went through
Mm,
with people that I trusted in a little more private situations.
yeah.
And then he started showing me how healing that was, and how that was impacting the women that heard my story and
Yeah.
the bits and pieces. And that also gave me the God confidence I needed to continue. But there most women, they just like, I don't think I have a story. I mean, I don't think I have anything that anybody's going to really care about. I mean, even
Mm,
when I started, I had criticism,
yeah.
even within my own family,
Hmm.
what are you doing? What are you thinking?
Yeah.
Why are you going to put our family out there? You know, and I
Yeah.
had to be obedient to God. And
Hmm.
not that I didn't discuss it with my family, but when you're going public, when you're going on the airwaves, you better also be researched. And that was the
Hmm.
other thing. I made sure that everything lined up,
Yeah.
you know.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's scary too. You could be,
Hmm.
you got to be careful because you can assassinate somebody's character and
Yeah.
all there
Hmm.
so there's a lot of different things that go with sharing your story publicly.
Yeah.
Privately is a little bit different, but you can still find you know that you could be rejected you know and so that is another area. You got to be brave, you got to be courageous, you got to be
Yeah.
willing to stick to your guns.
Hmm. Yeah. The words that were coming up for me as you were talking about this were knowing who to trust with your story, and then having the discernment of how much of the story to share with someone. Because when you have a
Yes.
hard story, some people may be very curious about the details, but the details aren't really what's important in encouraging other people.
No.
And so you can share a hard story, but you do need discernment in how much and who to trust with that. So, what are the things that you did, like prayer or some practical things that you did to really kind of walk that line between knowing who to trust with which parts of your story?
I prayed to God. I asked God for his leading. I relied on him and the Holy Spirit for discernment. And, I just knew that the timing of when I should and shouldn't
Hmm.
would be led by the Holy Spirit. And that is what I did. I just started with a counselor
Hmm.
and sharing it in a safe place as I was undergoing stress management counseling. That was where, I started. And then I was in women's ministry and I was at retreats, and there was opportunities to, you know, enter into a small group sharing or to be able to, you know, um, take and share a little bit of the pieces that God got glory from
Yeah.
my story
Yeah. There you go.
in those also.
Hmm.
So that's kind of that's the scope. I could narrow the scope around that as well. So
Yeah.
hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and you mentioned early on that you found that when you shared your story, that there was a lot of healing to be found for other people, because I think sometimes we can get stuck thinking that we're the only ones. We're the only ones that have gone through this. Nobody else is going to understand. And so we just bury it and it just sits inside, buried alive or just festering on the inside. And then once we realize, oh, somebody else has gone through something, maybe not the same but similar to me, I'm not the only one, and
Yeah.
they feel safe to share. And I've likened it to that when we have something that happens and we heal on the outside, we make it look really good, we put a band-aid and we look really good, but all that stuff is just trapped on the inside, and the only way to truly heal is, as painful as it is to kind of open it up again,
Yes.
that's the only way to drain it and then heal from the inside out. And I I would just love for you to talk a little bit more about just how healing that is for you to be able to share, but how healing it is for other people when they then have someone to connect with as well.
Yeah, no, I've seen it so many times. There's just a relatability. It strengthens others. It builds relationships. It provides all kinds of purpose when
Hmm.
you are able to, share it and help another woman who has heard it, and then you get confirmation back
Yeah.
from that as well. And it's just not about boasting about your own life, but it
Yeah.
showcases Christ's impact,
Yeah.
and it can break down barriers. So many times I've seen that also happen with women. When I was at Compassion International, I helped facilitate these women's events and bring women together from the ministry, and we would bring in speakers who would share their hard stories.
Mm.
And I could see even through that, after a speaker would speak, every woman that really resonated with her story too would want to have some connection with that woman. And I
Yeah.
do think it does build a connection very strong,
Yeah.
to not just a spiritual connection, emotional connections,
Hmm.
and relatability, which also we need unity. And I think that's one of the things, it unifies us as
Yeah.
women too.
Yeah, well, and I think so often God uses community to help us heal and to get through. And it can be especially challenging when some of that community is used to wound in the church. And then, I mean, you had some things happen that were, I'm reading and I'm like, oh my gosh, how did you get back to your faith in God? Because unfortunately, when people abuse their power in the church, it can really give you a very skewed view of who God is,
Yeah.
because that is not an accurate picture of who our God is. And He is a good and loving God. And unfortunately, some people don't use their influence well. And what were some of those things that God did to bring you back to Him and show you that
Mhm.
perhaps the example that you had been shown sometimes was not His character? That was not really Him. That
Yeah.
was a skewed view of that. How did He bring you around so that you could then get to know Him and His character and have faith in Him?
He did it through people. He did
Mm,
it through bringing certain people into my life that I found their character and how they served Christ. And I watched them carefully. And as I built relationships, they slowly would, invite me, to a community group, or they would invite me to their church. You know, it took me long time,
yeah.
a long time to join my first church and to allow myself to get close enough to other Christians.
Mhm.
So through people, through um, uh, just little bits of circumstances that God brought into my life to
Mhm.
show His character, show how much He loved me, that He wasn't about what I had been exposed, and that was humanity broken, and I was able to recognize, that that just was evil. That
Yeah.
was just evil.
Hmm.
And that was not what God was about. And so through His graciousness, through His blessings, through my just giving me time, through the people that were patient with me, and through, my experiences working in Christian organizations, I started to see a lot of what God was all about. And, I kind of recommitted my life in a different way
Yeah.
and started serving. And then God allowed me to, move into more leadership, those kind of roles
Hmm.
um, in
Yeah.
women's ministry.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then, that's all I can say. I mean, it's slow process. It wasn't overnight. And I
yeah.
still have to lean on God because I'm not easy to get past. I'm a hard nut to crack. And I feel bad for people, but I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Well,
how
and
you,
that is the way it is, and he uses that too. And I'm just reminded that as you were talking, it was so much more about how these people lived and how they lived their life and how they treated you. It wasn't so much what they preached. It wasn't always, I'm just reminded of that. Go out and preach the gospel and use words when necessary. And so it's not always just our words, it's more of our actions and how we're living it out and showing it and being faithful and being patient and all of that and learning. And you mentioned before we hit record just how much important it is for that forgiveness as
yeah,
part of the redemption, because just holding on to it, there's lots of things that it may have happened in your life and in mine that we could just stay angry about, but it doesn't do us, it doesn't serve us to stay angry. And so I'd love for
no,
you to touch a little bit on just how important that forgiveness piece is in our redemption and coming back.
yeah. Well, you can't do ministry in the calling that, sometimes that we have without reconciling. If you
Mhm.
can't deal with the unforgiveness, you can't go forward. And I think with me, I had to recognize, even with my own mother, that she was broken. You have to extend an understanding a bigger than yourself and bigger than your wound. And only Jesus, can help you through that because Jesus forgave us. And
Yeah.
when you get very real about this, none of us are deserving of anything that Jesus ever did for us.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're broken, we're broken without Christ, you know,
Yeah.
and we still continue to grow in our, faith and work through things that we have as a result of being part of the fall and being broken,
Yeah.
So, I had to quit thinking about myself, and I had to start recognizing too that it's not good for me. It's better to release, and you're not going to forget the memories, but you have to remember that everybody's in a different space and place, and some people don't even know they're hurting you. Hurt people do hurt people,
Yeah.
right? And
Hmm.
that's the other thing. So if they're not healed, they're going to hurt you, or they're going, and you just have to at some point let that go and let God. And I had to do that because I was getting angry at other people. I was not very nice. I was mean, and I was also living a very unhealthy, I'm out to get you and I'm going to do whatever I can to get back. And I mean, those are not good motives. That's not a good way to live your
Well,
life.
not really.
It's just not the right thing to be
Yeah.
doing with your emotions and
Yeah.
everything, God can use you when you're freed up from that. So forgiveness it's huge. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, it is a huge thing,
Mhm.
and you've got to allow God to come in and help you, something bigger than you know, forgive,
Yeah.
and that's what you have to do.
Yeah, it is. It's very important, and I love how God has brought you around with that, and He has placed this passion in your heart to share your story and encourage other women to share their stories. And one of the questions I like to ask is, what would you say to encourage someone to pursue that passion that God has placed in their heart? Because I do believe He's placed something unique in every woman's heart. So, what would you say to encourage them to pursue that?
Just get along with God. If you have that, I would say also take the opportunity to pray and to read your Bible and to journal, and just kind of, you know, start to allow God to come in and guide and lead your steps with that area as well. There's so many different um, ways to also share your testimony. I mean, you can do it, there's so many different opportunities that you can also, in church, maybe in women's groups.
Mhm.
You can also, I'm here to help, to reach out, to encourage women. I've been doing that off and on. I've encouraged all types of women
Yeah.
to help them through as part of our ministry and our outreach as well.
Wonderful.
So
Wonderful. Well,
it's
and if,
it's all good.
yeah.
If you feel that prompting, you know, just know God's timing is perfect.
Yes, indeed. Yes. Sometimes we want to hurry him up, and then sometimes we think he's the one dragging, sometimes we're the ones dragging. So, yes. Well, and Mischelle, if somebody wants to connect with you, you mentioned all the stories, your podcast, your book. What is one of the best ways for people to connect with you so they can find out more?
Oh, thank you. You can go on to, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn. You're welcome to Facebook message me. You can DM me on LinkedIn to, you can go to our website, www.alteredstories.org, you
Okay.
know, submit,
Mhm.
anything you want to submit around, if you want to talk about your story, or you can, find me, out there on X if you are into that. I'm on
Okay.
X and Threads a little bit. Anyway, a lot of different ways that you can
Yeah.
reach out to me
Lots of different
that can
ways.
be helpful.
Okay, and we will include some of those in the show notes. And Mischelle, thank you. Thank you for being willing to be obedient and be brave to share your story. And also, just thank you for everything you do to help the other women heal and to share their stories and that, and to spend some time with us here today.
Thank you, Lisa. God bless you and all the women listeners out there.